Hey guys, this video is all about how you solder one of these up. Motor and speed control. This guy is going into a infraction 6S. So we have a 1717 1650 motor and a 8S speed control. So I'm going to show you how I go about soldering it. Pop this guy out. This off to the side. Get this open. Pull this guy out. So this is what you get. Basically, this is out of the package. So that's pretty much it, what you get. We're gonna do some soldering. We're gonna go with some IC5 connectors. This is gonna be our bridge in the middle. So we're gonna move this stuff off to the side. Work with what we have here, but before we solder this guy up, I'm gonna do this one first. To me, it's a little bit easier doing it that way. So that's my little vise that I use to do my soldering. A little dangerous because it's metal, but you know, whatever. My strippers. So strip the wire, twist the end. That's what you see there. Go ahead and do both sides. All right. So I got this guy here. This is what holds my wires for me. And what you do is when you're soldering this, always make sure that you're pointing the metal, the wire itself, downwards. Because when you're soldering, you don't want that solder to ride up the wire. You want it to stay right down at the bottom. So always tilt it down. All right, so this is some liquid flux. Even though the solder says it has it in it, I always like to use it as well. I got my gun at 896. That's the temperature. That's the highest it can go. All right, so get the wire nice and hot before I start the solder. I build it up. Make sure I keep it on there. I'm gonna do the bottom. You wanna make sure you get the solder all the way through the wire where it reaches the bottom, and you wanna have a little belly down there. That belly is just a little extra solder to let you know that you went through the wire. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do this side. Again, wire is pointing down. Get the wire nice and hot before you start applying the solder. Nice little belly at the end or the bottom of the wire, let you know you got enough solder there. With that being said, both sides are done. It's not that bad. I'm gonna grab a IC5 connector. Stick it in my vise. Make it nice and tight. Add a little liquid flux to that. What I'm gonna do is get some solder. You want to do this fairly quick. You don't want to get it too hot. All right, I'm going to melt this guy on there. So it took years of screwing up to get it right, just like that. I don't know if you can see it on the phone, but that was one shot. You seen it. Wasn't a mistake. The other one's gonna look just like it. Now, what I typically do is when I'm soldering pins like this, I'm pretty good at it where I don't need to do it, but I advise those who are going to be soldering, they sit there and close off the end, and what it does is it keeps the pin nice and true, so if it gets too hot, it won't move around and you know, won't connect. So obviously speed control is fine doing it this way, which really I don't like doing it unless you're doing two connectors on the speed control, because it has cap packs in there. Sometimes they're charged up, and by closing off the end like that, you can probably cause some damage. So I don't recommend you doing this with the loop here. Just cut this loop, and therefore you're free to go. Anyway, I'm going to leave this connector on, and I'm going to do the other side, which I have to grab another IC5. And before I do it, I'm going to add the sleeves that you need to go over your solder points. So I'm going to add a lead here, and I'm going to add, this one is going to go on the opposite end, so I'm going to put it in that way. So again, that's that. So go ahead, and I'm going to solder this up. Just like that. All right, so while I got this one here, the only thing I'm gonna do is pull this guy out, flip it around. And for whatever reason, in the years of soldering, I always like to start with positive, for whatever reason. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna re-tin this. Now this comes tinned out of the box, but I'm just gonna go ahead and re-tin it, freshen it up. So therefore, when I do solder this wire to this connection, you get a good bond, you know? Feels like the materials is talking to each other. So again, make sure you point that down so the solder doesn't roll up the wire. Make sure you get it nice and hot before you start adding your solder. And ideally, you want to see that belly on the bottom, which I got. I'm going to go ahead and tin this. Just like that. All right, guys, so at this point, you can actually just take your sleeve, and that completes that side. Now I'm gonna do this other side here. And this is gonna be the negative side of the speed control. Again, I'm gonna re-tin it, just because. Got a nice belly on the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy going. Get it nice and hot. that's pretty much on how would you really go about soldering connectors. At least that's what we do here. I'm just gonna take this sleeve, slide it over, and pull this guy out. Now I have to tune this speed control. I'm gonna turn the power up for the customer and also turn the temperature up on the motor. Now out of the box, the motor temperature is not activated. Now the speed control temp is. So if the speed control gets hot, it is shut down. If that motor gets hot, sometimes it gets so hot that the wires will desolder itself from the motor. So you want to prevent that from happening. At least we tried to do that with our customers. So we turn the temperature on the motor. I think it goes up to, what was it, 210, Chris? About 210. And then once it reaches 210, it shuts down. You know, you don't have to do it to all of them, but those who like to stay on the throttle a little bit more than normal, I would recommend doing that. It's a fail-safe for me and you. All right, so I'm gonna go tune this up, and thank you for watching. We're gonna make another video on how to install this in the Infraction 6S. Thank you.